Oh, mate, there's a mudslide up local core for that across the road.
What better place to pick up some good homegrown yarns than the local pub? Australia's answer to Pam Ayres, Sandy Thorne wants our language saved before it's too late.
Sayings like mad as a bag of cut snakes and he plays up like a second-hand wheelbarrow and my car's got more rattles than a millionaire's baby. Things like that are wonderful sayings that you wouldn't hear in any other country, anything like it.
Sandy's latest book, Laugh Your Guts Out, chronicles scores of her favourite tales, purely Australian stories, not those flogged from the US or England.
One of my favourite yarns from the book, there's a wag, a mate of mine walked into a butcher shop at Cunnamulla one day and said to the butcher, "What's your steak like, mate?" He said, "Tender as a woman's heart." The bloke said, "Oh God, give us a pound of snags then, will you?"
A former Jillaroo and horsebreaker from the Queensland outback, Sandy can relate to some of her knockabout anecdotes. This next trick is definitely not one to copy at home. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Police are investigating the theory that the woman collapsed at the wheel of her car as she was driving south in Brunker Road. Just past the Burn Street intersection, the Magna sedan veered across the road and into the front yard of a house where it then hit a tree, sending the vehicle somersaulting onto its roof. A metre to the right and it would have hit a front room where Jack Jenkins was sitting. He said he just saw a red flash and heard a tremendous bang. He immediately called the emergency services and ambulance officers were on the scene within minutes but could do nothing for the driver who suffered severe head injuries.
Mayfield Police came across the alleged car racket with a twist over the weekend. They say the gang had scoured car parks in shopping centres and the Mater Hospital for the past 3 months looking for vehicles to break into. But according to Beat Police Officer Linda Hamill, the gang's main intention was not to steal the cars.
In most cases they're searching for money. If they don't locate anything, they're locking the vehicle up and leaving it.
Police believe the gang has broken into about 50 cars and in every case it's been a Commodore. They believe it's because this lock can be forced open in less than 10 seconds. Constable Hamill says the gang allegedly stole only 4 Commodores, so the owners of the other affected vehicles may not even be aware that their cars have been broken into.
Well, we're asking any person who has knowledge of their car being broken into to please report it to Mayfield Police. We'll follow it up.
Distraught mother Gail Foy salvaged what she could of her 5 and 8-year-old daughter's toys. She was at work when fire officers called to say that an electrical fault in the kitchen had destroyed one room in the ceiling, filling the rest of the house with smoke. The children's Christmas presents were saved by firemen, but all the furniture and clothing in the house on Wallara Drive, East Lambton, has been badly smoke affected. Gail's mother and neighbours say she's a battler, working hard to raise her daughters, but this morning she was too distressed to think of the future.
What plans have you got now?
I'll stay at my sister's tonight. I don't know. Think about it tomorrow.
That's when Gail's real heartache will begin as she salvages her possessions and seeks a new place to start all over again. Tom Hilston, NBN News. Fire brigade units were called to Beresfield Drive last night after residents reported strong petrol fumes. A telecom inspection hole was found to contain a large quantity of the fuel, which firefighters initially believed may have been leaking from a nearby service station tank. Fire-suppressing foam was played over gutters and down drains, while the petrol station site was cordoned off. Today, the site remained closed to traffic, while a search continued for the leak.
Given the right mix with the air, the fuel vapour can be explosive. We've taken numerous tests around the area here this morning and everything appears to be safe.
Petrol station staff say they have no records of any significant petrol loss from their underground storage. However, fire brigade officers believe the fuel may be seepage forced to the surface by recent rainfall. Arrangements were being made this afternoon to decant several thousand litres of supergrade petrol from one of the reservoirs. In the meantime, fire units will continue to maintain a watch on the area. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
The Newcastle Youth Service is run by the Uniting Church but relies on government funding and public donations to help keep a roof over the heads of youngsters in crisis, some homeless, others pregnant or unemployed. As well as employing counsellors or outreach workers, the service operates 2 homes in Newcastle, offering young people refuge and a fresh start to life. A welcome patron for the past few years has been the Hunter 2000 fundraising group. Its latest support is a $15,000 cheque. The service needs $500,000 a year to maintain staff, as well as a live-in learning centre for teenagers and Mallison House for unsupported pregnant women and young mothers. A resident of Mallison House is 17-year-old Joanne and her son Zachary, just 2 weeks old.
It's meant a lot of support and I couldn't have got through my pregnancy without them. And we're just like one big family.
Do they offer ongoing help and advice?
Yeah, when we leave, they help us with accommodation and find us somewhere to live and everything, make sure that we're all right.
The missing diver was reported overdue by his wife last night. She'd been watching him from the shore at Point Wollstonecroft in southern Lake Macquarie. Bill Wilcock was about 20 metres from the shore, diving beside a 5-metre aluminium runabout when he failed to surface. Searchers who resumed the hunt this morning held grave fears for his safety. While volunteers combed the shore, a police launch patrolled the area. The searchers' numbers were boosted by a unit of troops on manoeuvres from RAF Base Richmond near Sydney. NBN's news helicopter assisted, taking a police officer on board to expand the search area. At about 9:30 a.m, the crew spotted the missing man. His location was marked by a life jacket for a police boat to complete the recovery. It's believed a post-mortem will be conducted by a medical diving specialist in Sydney. This is the second diving death in the region in a month. On November 20, 44-year-old Wyong restaurateur Ru Kun Pui died on a night dive with friends at Terrigal. A post-mortem failed to find a cause of death. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
The police and council compound at Lookaby Now Headland has been deserted for more than a week, a court injunction stopping work pending the outcome of the appeal. The locals have still been coming here every day, but they come to relax at the beach now, rather than protest against the outfall. And there was certainly no protest around midday when the news came through of the successful court challenge.
This has made our job that much easier. We don't have to have people being arrested over the Christmas break. They can enjoy their Christmas instead.
The locals believe the ruling spells the end for the outfall project and say that's cause for celebration.
Not only Emerald Beach, but the city of Coffs Harbour, and I'm sure people will be celebrating right along the coastline, because this is a vital issue for all people who love the ocean, love their environment.
The residents are now pushing for the rehabilitation of the headland, a process which includes pulling up all of the sewerage pipes that have been laid to date. They're also calling for the council to be made accountable for continuing to spend money on the project while the outfall dispute was before the courts. However, Coffs Harbour Council is unfazed by today's ruling, saying it's already applied to the state government to amend its local planning guidelines so the outfall can proceed. The anti-outfall lobby, though, is equally confident. The residents say they've now got enough breathing space to last them through to the next sitting of Parliament, when a new bill will include the headland in a neighbouring nature reserve, blocking the outfall forever. Ian Cameron in Coffs Harbour for NBN News.
The Breakers had Brisbane on the defensive for most of the game, but the spirited attack had no teeth. Time and time again, the ball floated past the goal mouth without finding a friendly foot. Full field attacks fell flat, and point-blank chances went begging. Goalkeeper Mike Gibson repelled the efforts of Brisbane breakaways, while the referee handed out cautions like Christmas cards, booking 6 players. The scoreboard and a small crowd looked on blankly at half-time, and things didn't get any better. A penalty kick to Brisbane again had Gibson in the sights, and he fended off a double-barrelled onslaught. His opposite number deflected what looked like a certainty. Brisbane continued to snipe at the Breakers' goal, with the locals proving that if they're as good as getting them in as keeping them out, the game would have been a runaway. In the end, the scoreboard remained unchanged, with both teams going away with 1 competition point each.
The bombs were discovered among several hundred discarded mortar canisters which had apparently been dumped by an army surplus contractor. Council officers had no idea whether the objects were defused or still live after sitting in military stores for 50 years.
We've got to imagine the worst, that they are live.
The rubbish tip was evacuated and closed to the public while police inspected the find and spoke to a contractor believed to have delivered the load. The contractor confirmed that the weapons were World War II mortars, which had apparently been left in cases instead of being separated for disposal as scrap metal. The practice bombs would once have held a phosphorus marker charge. Police say rubbish tip authorities behaved responsibly, and their advice to other people who find anything resembling a bomb is simple.
Call the relevant authorities, leave it alone and get away from it quickly.
The mortars will be held by police pending a full inquiry. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
For some of the residents, the Crisis Refuge Centre is their last hope. The next step is the streets.
We've been kicked out 2 days after Christmas, and that's pretty RS if you ask me.
Around 500 people come through the centre each year, some for emotional, some for financial reasons. Of the 20 residents here today, 5 were the victims of domestic violence. They came because they had nowhere else to go. The Gosford City Community and Information Service has run the program for 21 years. It says due to a lack of state and federal government funding, the building will close. So what are these people going to do now?
Well, we really don't know. We're giving them every assistance we can to relocate them.
Also to close Rumballara Lodge, a refuge for Gosford street kids. Anne Sullivan from the Community and Information Service says funding has been so poor, her organisation is already $95,000 in debt. And while she admits more government money has been offered to fund another 3 months, she says it would just worsen her financial difficulties. Residents of the refuge are dumbfounded. You think they should have accepted that extra funding?
Oh yes, yeah, they should have. Definitely.
They say the extra time could be used to find alternative accommodation out of the peak holiday period. Tonight, Chris Harcher, the state member for Gosford, says he is now looking to find another group to run the centre. Mr Harcher says the government will fight to keep the program running.
A wild storm and wet roads contributed to a spate of car crashes on the New England Highway north of Maitland this morning. In the first of 3 smashes, 2 station wagons collided head-on just after 9:30. The northbound vehicle carrying a Sydney family on holiday sped into a ditch. 1 man was trapped for almost an hour. Soon after the impact, a thunderclap heralded a downpour. As police diverted traffic from the scene, 2 more cars collided, injuring 3 people. Even as ambulances began ferrying patients to the waiting rescue helicopter, they were called to yet another crash less than a kilometre away. A family of 5 escaped with minor injuries after their vehicle crashed through a fence and rolled down an embankment. With the weather closing in, the helicopter took off with 3 of the most seriously hurt. It was forced to wait out a storm at Maitland before completing a flight to Newcastle. 8 people suffering multiple injuries were taken to Singleton, Maitland and the John Hunter hospitals.
The vehicle carrying a family of 3 was heading south on the New England Highway at about 6 o'clock last night. As they rounded a bend 6 kilometres north of Wollabadar, an oncoming utility crossed to the wrong side of the road and slammed into their vehicle. The impact on the passenger side killed the 29-year-old woman. Her 5-month-old baby boy, asleep in a rear seat capsule, also died instantly. The male driver was trapped for 30 minutes before rescue crews could free him. He was taken to Tamworth Hospital, suffering serious injuries. The driver of the utility was also badly hurt. He too remains in hospital. It's suspected the crash was caused by a mechanical fault. Police investigations are continuing.
The Carnival is an annual event honouring Stella Kappa, who donated more than $150,000 to the surf lifesaving movement in Newcastle for their help in the Maitland floods of 1955. And for a while today it looked as though a washout was imminent, with heavy skies set to unleash their load. Never fear the lightning and thunder, the show must go on, and the district clubs, restricted to one team of 16 members per club, dived into head-to-head competition. As usual, the march past was a formal affair. However, with the impending storm, a certain air of casualness was obvious. To the serious competition, and the surf race was a beauty, expected to be a showdown between Sean Davis and Simon McKillop Davies. McKillop Davies is a still water swimmer who upset surf swimmer Davis last week, but neither athlete reckoned on Jamie Jenkins. Catching a small wave near the beach, Jenkins crossed the line in front of Davies and McKillop Davies. Caves Beach won the open boat race from Swansea, Belmont and Redhead. And the overall carnival was a Swansea Belmont bonanza, with the club picking up the handicap and outright championships with 227.5 points and 214.5 points respectively. Nobbies had a good carnival with the second and third, and Redhead fared the same.
Tim Patterson, Anthony Pauling and Stuart Collins were getting over their jet lag today, reliving some great memories.
Well, to be picked to start off with, it was great, but to actually put on the jumper, it was something that you can't describe. It was the feeling like you played within yourself, and it was great.
The boys played 7 games on the 6-week tour, 2 of them test matches, giving the Poms a 44-12 and 28-0 hiding. All 3 have signed with the Knights, hoping to make a name for themselves in the Winfield Cup, and from there eventually break into the senior test team. But according to speedy winger Tim Patterson, Australia's old foe England isn't looking like it can even threaten the Aussies in the years ahead.
I think the English have got a lot of catching up to do. They've got to think about what they're doing and try to play the way we play, I suppose.
The Great Lakes Shire, based at Foster Tuncurry, is one of 16 councils across the state to benefit from the grant. It's designed to provide a professional overview of tourism in the Great Lakes Shire and is to be matched dollar for dollar by the council and the Tourism Board. Consultants chosen by the Commission will draw up tourism strategies and developments for the growing area.
Tourism being as important as it is these days, it's essential that we get the best advice that we possibly can.
Once the plan is drafted early in the new year, work on tourist developments such as roads, transport and natural and man-made attractions will be started, improving the appearance and function of the Great Lakes area that stems from Karua in the south to Halliday's Point on the mid-north coast.
Time and shopping crowds march on. Some are looking for a last-minute gift or that final touch of tinsel. And while the cash registers continued to tick over, the escalators, at least in David Jones' Newcastle store, stopped for a revitalised tradition of yesteryear. Shoppers were treated to a little extra Christmas spirit from the staff choir. Department store singers went out with fairy lights, but they're on the comeback as well. Residents of Rosemount Avenue at Lake Munmora have added a little twinkle to their Christmas cheer.
Merry Christmas.
For some, it's been a hard, dry year, but spare a thought for Santa on his Down Under run. Beside the commercial clatter of Christmas, many enjoy the chance to spend time with family and friends. The city's travel terminal saw a steady flow of suitcases. It's also a time of worship.
1991 may not have been good to you. 1992 may even be tougher. But whether times are tough or whether times are lovely, you need a good, strong faith in God, a good, strong faith in your fellow human beings, and a good, strong faith in yourself. Get those three together in that order, and whether times are tough or lovely, you will have a perspective and peace and contentment in your heart. I hope Christmas in 1992 will be good for you, and that you'll find that peace of God in your hearts and in your family that passes all understanding.
Notching up 109 birthdays is no mean feat, but ask Kit Sinclair how to do it, and she'll shoot down all that talk about the fountain of eternal youth very quickly. What's your secret?
That's my secret. Everybody asks me that. I don't know, I just live.
2 generations of family and friends joined Kit today to celebrate her 109th. Actually, another generation is not far off, with great-great-grandniece-in-law Tracy expecting a baby very soon. It's Kit's first Hunter birthday after moving to the area from Melbourne. A sip of champagne and time to attack those candles. But she didn't run out of puff, and with the energy of someone far younger, cut the cake. And for the 17 million or so of us youngsters, a formula to live by.
Work and live. That's all I did.
Three months ago, Phil Williamson gave up truck driving and bought the lease to run this small news agency in Mayfield. Last night, as he returned to his home at the back of the shop, he saw everything he owns going up in smoke.
Well, I came over the station, over the stairs at the station, and just saw fire engines and smoke and hit the panic button and started running.
By then, the fire had swept through his residence and into the news agency.
Only got what I stand up in, and no money, no nothing.
Phil Williamson was renting the premises. While the owner had insurance for the building, Phil didn't have the contents insured. Police are investigating the possibility that someone broke into the shop, stole some cigarettes and set fire to the building. Meanwhile, fire extensively damaged the Point Clare railway station last night. Police say there were suspicious circumstances. Jane Anderson, NBN News.